Hello everyone. Mulțumesc că ați venit. Avem alături de noi o persoană foarte specială pentru că este conectată la două culturi în același timp, la cultura franceză și la cultura germană. Nicole Colin de la Universitatea din Marsilia, care coordonează un program de studii în limba germană și franceză și a scris cărți despre colaborarea culturală dintre cele două mari culturi. I'm sorry, I'm talking about you in another language, but you know about you, so there's no problem. Este autoarea unor cărți și a unui dicționar despre colaborările dintre cultura germană și cultura franceză. Iar astăzi ne va vorbi despre o persoană pe care toată lumea poate că o știe așa din auzite sau o știe pentru că era soția lui Bertolt Brecht, dar această persoană despre care ne va vorbi doamna Nicole Colin a avut o carieră în sine, a avut o carieră a ei independent sau uneori dependentă de Bertolt Brecht. În orice caz, e mai mult de spus despre colaborarea dintre Helene Weigel și Bertolt Brecht și sper să auzim astăzi măcar o parte din ceea ce e de spus despre această personalitate. Această conferință este a treia la Facultatea de Teatru și Film, este parte din programul Arhiva Feministă de Teatru FEM 100. Primele două conferințe le puteți vedea deja online, o să o vedeți și pe aceasta poate după aceea, dar între timp vă invit să vedeți și a treia expoziție, este gata, dar nu putem aici să o prezentăm fiindcă nu avem, tehnic vorbind, n-am configurat cum să intrăm pe internet. În orice caz, expoziția se cheamă Unde ne sunt regizoarele și veți afla, eu am curatoriat-o pe aceasta, după colegele noastre, Raluca Sas, care a făcut o expoziție extraordinară despre secretariatul literar, și Miruna Runcan cu expoziția despre criticele de teatru. Aceasta, a treia, încearcă să răspundă la întrebarea asta, unde ne sunt regizoarele, pentru că atunci când ne uităm înapoi, practic o vedem doar pe Cătălina Buzoianu, sau mă rog, ea e cea mai vizibilă. Eu am încercat să mai găsesc și alte nume și să reconstitui parcursul lor special din mai multe puncte de vedere. O să vedeți de ce. Mulțumesc că ați venit. Nicole, thank you for coming and we are looking forward to hear more about Helene Weigel.
Thank you very much, Christina. Bună ziua. Hello, everybody. First of all, I would like to express my warmest thanks to Christina Modriano for inviting me to be part of her important and inspiring series of conferences exploring various aspects of women in theatre, all within the framework of her groundbreaking project, Feminist Theatre Archive, FEM 100. I absolutely agree with you, Christina. To review the history of women on stage, it seems to be an undertaking that is as necessary as it is insightful, and I'm truly honored to contribute to this important dialogue. In my presentation today, I would like to take the opportunity to examine the dynamic between women and men in theatre through the lens of one remarkable personality, the German-Austrian actress and theatre director Helene Weigel, born in 1900 and passing away in 1971. Her life and career offer an interesting perspective on the challenges and triumphs faced by women in the world of theatre, and I hope her story will inspire further thoughts and discussion. I will begin with some opening remarks. I will begin with some opening remarks about the extremely precarious situation of women in the arts in general and in the theatre in particular, and then take a closer look at Helene Weigel in order to explore the question of whether she should be seen as an exception or as a role model. At first sight, it may seem surprising to talk about Helene Weigel during discussions of forgotten female theatre makers, as she certainly occupies a significant position in the collective memory of the German theatre. This is reflected not least in the large number of publications about her life and work. In 2000, 4 extensive works about her person and work were published to mark the 100th anniversary of her birth, and in Berlin we even find a Helene Weigel Platz. The challenge in studying Helene Weigel's work lies in the difficulty of separating it from that of her husband, Bertolt Brecht. Her artistic heritage is so closely interwoven with him that it is almost impossible to analyze her contribution independently of their relationship. The question is, therefore, how we can present her as an independent artist without falling into the trap of presenting her as a profiteer or even a victim of this relationship. What we don't need, but unfortunately is often the case, is a paternalistic victimization of women in theatre like Helene Weigel. I will come back to this in the further course of my lecture. So you see here the relationship, the close relationship between. In her famous article, "Why Have There Been No Great Women Artists?" published in 1971, so I see it is the year of the death of Helene Weigel, art historian Linda Nochlin fundamentally questions male dominance in the field of art, which was previously considered natural, and examines it in a social cultural context. The fact of the matter that there have been no supremely great women artists, as fast as we know, although there have been many interesting and very good ones who remain insufficiently investigated or appreciated. Nochlin's observation of the under or non-representation of women in art has since been recognized as an important issue in modern art and is the subject of much discussion, not only in feminist circles. In fact, the traditional exclusion of the feminine from the arts only concerns, of course, its active producing part. As a theme, object, or muse, women have always been an integral part of the art field. In painting, sculpture, but also in literature, the relationship between the passivity of the female model and the producing male artist constitutes a tension that Klaus Teweleit illuminates in his book Buch der Könige Orpheus und Eurydike. In a far more radical way than many protagonists of feminists in art history, Teweleit denounced male art production as fundamentally destructive of women. Sigrid Löffler summarized the essence of Teweleit's view. Production in a patriarchy, and this includes the production of art, is based on human sacrifice and is founded primarily on the sacrifice of women. Women's bodies are incorporated into the very foundations of poems, operas, and artworks, not just symbolically, but quite literally. Women were killed, or at least their death were accepted, so that the artwork could be created, as in the example of Orpheus and Eurydike. This male strategy of destruction can be read to a certain extent as the flip side of the lack of female artists, whereby both phenomena are causally related. Women as artists were always exceptions that proved the rule, and they only received sustained attention, if at all, when they succeeded in using their individual contacts with the established men in the art world to gain access to the system. The examples of this basic constellation in modern art are as numerous as they are famous, ranging from Sonia Delaunay and Robert Delaunay, Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera to Gabriele Münter and Wassily Kandinsky, Hannah Höch and Raoul Hausmann, Camille Claudel and Auguste Rodin, and, as already mentioned, Helene Weigel and Bertolt Brecht. In all these rare cases, the mythical charge of the relationship between artist and model or muse are pointed out by Teveleit is harnessed by the women for their own art production, with the great risk of dependency that we have already noted in the case of Helene Weigel. Let us now turn to the specificity of theatre in terms of gender equality. The theatre is always late in comparison to other literary genres. This was a quotation of Émile Zola in the end of the 19th century. While socially relevant topics such as poverty, exploitation, or so-called women issue are very popular in novels at the end of the 19th century, the Parisian audience is not interested in such topics on stage and prefers entertaining plays. In the same way, however, one could also state this always late applies to the current state of the equal participation of women in the theatre. While significant strides have been made in achieving gender equality in the visual arts since the 70s, the asymmetry between women and men in theatre has remained largely unchanged. The core issue in theatre is not the lack of women working in the field, but the deeply entrenched gender-specific division of labor. The specific dynamics of production and reception within the theatre as a community make these institutional structures particularly resistant to change. Unlike female painters who work independently before confronting the inequalities of the male-dominated art market, women in theatre operate entirely within a system where key positions of influence are largely inaccessible for them. At best, women are relegated to roles centered on representation and interpretation as actress or to supporting functions such as costume design or makeup. Unfortunately, I could only find data from 2018-19 from Germany, but I can show you the new edition of Sena Euro, and you find here a really good example, a new study about this phenomenon. I think here you can see, even if you don't understand German, Intendants, so directors, Regie, so directors on stage, Intendants, director of theatres, Autorschaft, text, so authors, and here you have Dramaturgie, this is in Germany like assistants, and Regie assistants also assistants, and Souffleurs and Souffleuses. You see here, it is, I think it is evident. As you can see, theatre work is still deeply structured along gender lines with clear divisions by profession and a rigid hierarchy. While the broader field of art production has become more accessible to women, key leadership positions in the performing arts are still predominantly occupied by men, with only rare exceptions. Think about it, in how many other cultural fields are women so visible absent from top positions like directors or theatre manager as they are in theatre. This imbalance is impossible to ignore and no coincidence. It reflects a deeper systemic dysfunction in the perception and appreciation of art contributions, which ultimately are based on deeply rooted cultural ideas of femininity and masculinity. Men are expected to assert themselves as the active subjects of their products, earning recognition and success as creators. Women, in contrast, are relegated to passive, secondary roles, seen as object or muses in the virtual arts, where men paint her, or as interpreters and actresses in the performing arts, where men direct and stage them. As Simone de Beauvoir says, woman is an existing being who is obliged to make herself an object. As a subject, she possesses an aggressive sensuality that cannot be satisfied by the male body. It is considered normal that the system delivers her to man as prey and gives her back her self-determination by placing a child in her arms. Indeed, according to Simone de Beauvoir, traditionally, the only autonomy granted to women as creators is motherhood. This brings us to another significant issue in theatre. Beyond the structural discrimination and objectification of women, there is also the challenge of age and family responsibilities. As you likely know, theatre is a profession where balancing family and career is exceptionally difficult. No consideration is given to issues such as childcare, and pregnancy often marks the end of a woman's career in this field. Moreover, the problem of age-related discrimination against women in theatre is alarmingly serious. From the age of 40 onwards, the chances of a woman getting a leading role decrease dramatically for two main reasons. Firstly, there are a flagrant lack of female characters in plays, especially in traditional theatre literature. Here, the otherwise positive and important rule of theatre as a mirror of society has a negative effect. Since women are still underrepresented in leading positions in politics, business, and culture, they are rarely the focus of attention in plays. Significant roles for women, especially older women, are strikingly rare on stage. Secondly, the emphasis of physical capital, attributes such as youth and beauty, often results in roles being given to much younger women, even when the character's age clearly suggests otherwise. In this way, the representation of women on stage narrows and distorts the social image of womanhood, which is not shown in all its diversity. Furthermore, these opportunistic casting decisions also marginalize older actresses who already have to fight for a place in a highly competitive small field. In a subtle but effective way, the theatre is sending the message that women's values decreases with age, even if her talent and experience remain outstanding. Let's now return to Helene Weigel. In this context, her very unusual biography is fascinating for a number of reasons and seems even to contradict, in an extreme way, the typical career of an actress. In 1948, at the age of 1947, she made a remarkable comeback, taking on the title role in Mother Courage and Her Children, an achievement that is exceptionally rare for an actress. But before we look at the significance of this accomplishment, let's first take a moment to explore her life and some of the most remarkable milestones of her theatre career. Helene Weigel was born into a Jewish family in Vienna in 1900 and attended the only Austrian high school where girls at the time were allowed to pass their A-levels. Already at a young age, she showed a strong determination and a pronounced talent. Instead of doing her A-level, she completed an acting education against the will of her family. In 1919, she moved to Frankfurt and later to Berlin, where she quickly gained recognition and celebrated great successes on the stages of the Volksbühne and the Deutsches Theater. In 1923, Helene Weigel met Bertolt Brecht, which marked the beginning of an important personal and professional partnership. The following year, their son Stefan was born. After Brecht's divorce from the opera singer Marianne Zoff in 1929, the couple married, and in 1930, their daughter Barbara Brecht was born. Although the couple's partnership was characterized by conflict and tension, often heated up by Brecht's numerous extramarital relationships with women such as Ruth Berlau and Margarete Steffin, their professional collaboration was remarkable, productive, and enriching for both sides. In a dynamic recalling the classical master-muse dependency, Brecht drew much of his inspiration from Weigel, and many of the female characters in his plays are unmistakably influenced by his wife. Initially, however, this collaboration led to a personal and artistic crisis for Weigel. But in 1932, she made her big breakthrough in Berlin with the title role in the world premiere of Brecht's Mother. It was during this performance that she began to develop her characteristic economic acting style, a method that condenses expression into deliberate, powerful gestures while at the same time employing intellectual precision. This innovative approach ultimately became an important foundation for Brecht's iconic model productions. The performance marked a turning point not only for Weigel, but for modern theatre itself. Considering the still precarious situation of mothers in theatre today, I think it is essential to highlight an often overlooked aspect of Helene Weigel's life. As much as possible, she took full responsibility for supporting herself and her children financially. Until 1930, she even chose to live separately from Brecht to ensure he could work undisturbed. In 1933, Helene Weigel and her family went to exile, moving first to Denmark, then to Sweden and Finland, and ultimately to the United States. It was not until November 1947 that she and Brecht returned to Europe. When I read this sentence, and then they went into exile in 1933, it always strikes me as a misleading relaxed. It sounds to me as if they had just gone to holiday. In reality, the situation was anything but relaxed. The dangers that Helene Weigel and Bertolt Brecht faced were extraordinary, and I don't think it is possible to overemphasize the severity of their situation. They traveled with their 2 children, sometimes on separate route, and lived under the constant risk to be arrested. Their journey was full of challenges, lack of financial resources, limited language skills, and the uncertainty of survival in a foreign country. As their daughter Barbara once aptly remarked, "We must not forget that they were 2 young people, just 33 and 35 years old, who were reaching the peak of their artistic success when everything was suddenly and violently ripped away from them. It is difficult to truly comprehend the emotional and practical dimension of what they went through in those years." Take a moment to imagine what this radical change meant for Helly, as Helene Weigel was affectionately known. Exile marked a complete break with her previous life. Language barriers and harsh reality of immigration characterized her everyday life, which was almost exclusively limited to the role of wife and mother. Despite her tireless efforts, there was practically no opportunity to continue her work as an actress for 15 years, apart from a handful of appearances on emigrant stages. You can imagine the frustration and endurance required to sustain such a long artistic silence, especially for someone as talented and ambitious as Helene Weigel. And in this moment, also in the situation of exile, it reminds me of Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own, which you have also quoted, I think, Christina, because wherever they newly arrived, the first thing that Helene Weigel looked for was a room to work in. Of course, not for herself, but for Brecht, because it was he who earned the money. Even Brecht's effort to involve Helene Weigel in Hollywood productions ultimately fell short. Fritz Lang, for instance, decided at the last moment not to cast her in a small role of a vegetable vendor in Even Hangmen Die, a film for which Brecht himself co-wrote the script. This decision caused a significant rift between Brecht and Lang, highlighting the difficulties Weigel faced in exile even with Brecht's influence. Brecht even crafted the role of the mute Katrin in Mother Courage and Her Children specifically for Weigel, intending for her to perform the part anywhere without the obstacle of language barriers. Historical irony, despite these well-intentioned efforts, Helene Weigel never played Katrin. Instead, thanks to a twist of fate, Weigel took on the iconic title role of Mother Courage in the first German production of the play in January 1949, which was undoubtedly the most important performance of her career, enabling her to stage a spectacular comeback as an actress. 1 year ago, shortly after returning from exile and settling in Zurich, Helene Weigel made an extremely daring first attempt to test her abilities as an actress. After 15 years of stage abstinence. In Chur, a small village, a Swiss town, she took on the title role in Brecht's Antigone, a role for which she was clearly too old. Helene Weigel herself described the casting as a delicate undertaking. It was an impossible thing to do, a 47-year-old Antigone. Haman was 20 years younger and not much older, was Gaukler who played Creon. To make these age disparities disappear, all the actors, and Weigel in particular, were heavily made up, their mask blurring the visible age differences. The experience proved successful. The production was well received, thanks in large part to Weigel's emotionally changed performance, which she delivered despite Brecht's initial reservations. Ultimately, he acknowledged her portrayal as a significant achievement. While the production in Chur, designed also as a practical test of Brecht's epic theatre, attracted little public attention, critics praised Weigel's performance, highlighting in particular her embodiment of the principles of epic theatre. However, the question of her age was repeatedly discussed. As Christa Neubert-Harwig explains, this issue was not relevant to Brecht's idea of theatre. For Brecht, the rule was a role is always played by the person who is able to fulfill it. Age and beauty were criteria that the actor had to produce, not attributes of the person themselves. Although the audience in Chur was small, the performance attracted a great degree of attention in the theatre world. Many famous old friends and colleagues had traveled there specially, and the production is often referred to as the birth of a new theatre area. Looking at Helene Weigel, we can see that this success, unexpected in several respects, once again affirms her most important qualities. Her ability to adapt and improvise at the same time, breaking new and unfamiliar ground, was just as crucial to her comeback as her perseverance and her talent for convincing people of her artistic vision, even in the face of resistance. By the way, these are the same skills that saved her life in exile. In 1948, the authorities in East Berlin, which was in the Soviet occupation zone, invited Bertolt Brecht to come and found his own new theatre. Since other options hadn't worked out, Helene Weigel and Bertolt Brecht accepted the offer and went to the GDR to establish the Berliner Ensemble. In January 1949, Brecht's first production in East Berlin, the enthusiastically received German premiere of his play Mother Courage and Her Children, marks a turning point. Originally intended to play Katrin, the mute daughter Helene Weigel assumed the title role, delivering a performance that not only redefined her artistic trajectory, but also set a milestone in the evolution of modern theatre, soon to be deeply influenced by Bertolt Brecht's revolutionary ideas. While the production's success is widely acknowledged, the precise nature of Helene Weigel's contribution remains a fascinating and largely unexplored area for academic investigation. Just 1 month after this remarkable success, in February 1949, Helene Weigel was officially appointed as the artistic director of the newly established Berliner Ensemble. She would go on to lead the theatre with extraordinary dedication and vision until her passing in 1971. Bertolt Brecht, who played the role of the artistic director, contributed significantly to its development until his death in 1956. While Brecht's contribution as artistic director was undoubtedly important, it is essential to recognize that it was Helene Weigel who was the cornerstone of the Berliner Ensemble's creation and development. From the outset, she was responsible for overseeing all critical, administrative, and practical matters. Beginning in February 1949, while Brecht traveled to Switzerland to persuade former colleagues to join him in East Berlin, Weigel assumed sole responsibility for negotiation and decision-making. During this period, she successfully managed the complex discussions surrounding the financing of the new theatre, as well as securing a location, and on a provisional basis, the theatre was even named Helene Weigel Ensemble. The Berliner Ensemble was initially housed within the Deutsches Theater, receiving its permanent home at the Schiffbauerdamm only in 1954, where it remains today. This arrangement, however, was not without challenges. Sharing facilities with the Deutsches Theater created a lot of conflicts, particularly over the allocation of rehearsal and performance spaces. Helene Weigel, as the primary negotiator, had to navigate these tensions with Wolfgang Langhoff, the director of the Deutsches Theater, who had also returned from exile. Langhoff ultimately controlled these decisions, adding another layer of complexity to Weigel's responsibilities. Through her resilience, vision, and ability to manage both artistic and administrative demands, Helene Weigel not only shaped the Berliner Ensemble into a world-renowned institution, but also left an indelible mark on the history of theatre. Her contributions remind us that the success of such an enterprise is rarely the result of a single individual, but of the tireless efforts of those willing to carry the burden of both creative and practical leadership. After initial successes in the GDR, the Berliner Ensemble achieved a decisive milestone in 1954 with a guest performance of Mother Courage at the festival Théâtre des Nations à Paris. This production not only earned international recognition, but also won the festival's top prize, cementing its place on the global theatre stage. After Bertolt Brecht's death in 1946, Manfred Beckwert, who had joined the Berliner Ensemble as Brecht assistant in 1941, assumed the role of chief artistic director. Despite significant conflicts and tensions between him and Helene Weigel in the late 60s, Beckwert acknowledged that Weigel had always been the true leader of the theatre, even during Brecht's lifetime. According to Beckwert, Weigel was solely responsible for the theatre programmation and organizational decisions, while Brecht played only a minimal role in these areas. Helene Weigel's influence extended beyond her work with the Berliner Ensemble. She was a founding member of the German Academy of Arts in East Berlin and was honored with the National Prize of the GDR 3 times. In 1960, she was appointed professor, and in 1965 she received the Gold Order of Patriotic Service. She made her last appearance once again in the title role of Brechts Die Mutter, 4 weeks before her death and shortly before her 71st birthday on 4 April 1971 during a guest performance tour in the suburbs of Paris. So her first important role, as to say, with Brecht, the mother, was also her last role. And we had to think about it, what motherhood can represent in this context. Let us now return to our initial thesis of gender-specific asymmetry in the power dynamics of theatre. Without question, Helene Weigel stands out as a counter example, or an exception that highlights the rule. But more importantly, she is also a role model. Her life and work demonstrate the importance of qualities we have already discussed: persistence, resilience, improvisational spirit, and the courage to break the rules and explore new paths. Helene Weigel's example teaches us that artistic talent alone is not enough to achieve positions and influence, nor is enough to simply acknowledge the persistent truth that women are often expected to be better than men to reach similar levels of responsibility and recognition. Instead, her story challenged us to adopt a new perspective on gender relations in the theatre, one that breaks with old patterns and advocates for equality, agency, and inclusion. So, come to the yes, because I have only a part about the title of my conference, which is in reference to a famous book, but I think it is too much. So I come to my conclusion, and I would only state that Helene Weigel's role in Brecht's success story should definitely be studied in more details. As actress and theatre director of the Berliner Ensemble, one of the most influential theatre of the 20th century, she gained remarkable achievements herself, and it is surprising that she is not more known for herself. As we have seen, she staged an impressive comeback and at the age of 47 and continued to expand her worldwide reputation until her death. Her accomplishment defined the gender-specific inequalities that persist in theatre even today. Helene Weigel's journey serves as both an inspiration and a call to action. And it reminds us that we need to challenge systematic prejudice, advocate for diverse voices, and create pathworks for women in leadership positions in theatre, not as exceptions, but as a normal opportunity. In this sense, Helene Weigel stands as an extraordinary role model, particularly for young female theatre makers. Her story reminds us of the importance of resisting objectification and of forging a path defined by resilience and independence. remembering her achievements and the significance of her work may also encourage a new generation to challenge the persistent gender imbalance in the arts in general and in theatre in particular. Helene Weigel's life and career are a testament to what is possible when talent and determination come together, and her example is extraordinary even today. Thank you for your...
So if you have questions, I will start actually because I'm very interested in the subject of exile, and there are many women in Romanian theatre that got lost because they were forced into exile for political reasons, like them. And she, unlike these women, of course, we also had male artists forced into exile, but it somehow appears that for them it was somehow easier to get back to their work abroad, or then after 1990 coming back to Romania and reconnect to the careers that they had here. And we have great examples like Radu Venciulescu or David Esrig or Lucian Giurchescu. These directors, they came back after 1990 and they reconnected with the Romanian culture. As for women, it was much more difficult for them to come back, and none of them came back actually. Not to reconnect with the careers that they had in Romania, because this kind of dislocation is much more difficult when you have a family, when you want to raise your children, when your roots are in that culture, the second culture that you choose when you are exiled. It's much difficult to come back in a way. So this is an example, and I never thought about Helene Weigel or Bertolt Brecht in terms of how did they make it into exile, how difficult it was for them to be exiled, and how they found the power to come back and be as great as they were before.
Yeah.
And I was interested in that particular subject of exile.
Yes, because I think it is a very important subject, exile, and it was also why I stressed to imagine really the real situation in which they were. It is. I cannot. It was really dangerous, and it was not only dangerous. Sometimes it was really 15 years. It was problematic, and even if they were coming back from exile, they were not allowed, Brecht and Helene Weigel, to come back to the Western Germany, because there were the American occupation, and they were considered as communists, and so it was difficult. They were in the Switzerland, in Zurich. And this was also, I cannot go in every detail, but this was the moment where Helene Weigel had taken the decision to separate from Bertolt Brecht as she was in Zurich. Because there was the possibility to work independent. They had some possibilities to work at the Schauspielhaus, the theater in Zurich. It was a very important exile stage, the Züricher Schauspielhaus, where a lot of German exile directors and actors worked. Wolfgang Langhoff, he was in Zurich also, and he goes back, and he was an actor in the beginning, and he goes back and after this the director of the German theater, the Deutsches Theater, and in this moment she wants to separate from Brecht, and she said because yes, there were so many problems in the couple, and it was quite always difficult, and I think it was Brecht who he don't want to separate. He don't want the separation from, and it was always he who had argument against the separation. And then she goes with him to Berlin, and this is a very particular situation, because in this moment, after 45, of course, Berlin was complete in ruin. So it was really a new beginning, a real start, a new start. And this, I think, is also a very particular situation, of course. But I think it is. We can think about Helene Weigel, and when she died in 1971, the next director was also female. It was Ruth Berghaus. So we have a very, very important theater, German theater, for not only for the German theater, I think, but for the theater, for the international theater also. And we have to think about why it was possible. Of course, there were in the communists, as you know, I think in Romania, there was the idea that women has also the possibility to work and everything, but we know that it wasn't so in the arts. It was, I don't know how it was in Romania, but in the GDR it was not possible it was also very difficult for women in arts and theater, yeah, and if they have children, and so it was not so easy. And so we can ask why it was possible in the Berliner Ensemble. And I think it is also related, because I have quoted the concept of the Brecht Theater, the epic theater, that it is not important what the role has to be played by the person who can play it. So it is not the question of beauty or age. And I think when we see here Helene Weigel, it is not only that she is 47 years old or 48, I don't know, but that perhaps it's also 50 years, but she's also in a very difficult situation, and I think we can see it also, that she is a little bit even older than perhaps she is, yes, because of her life situation. So it is another view of women on stage, and this, I think, is very important for if we are thinking about women in theatre, that we have to think about really the fundamentals of the relationship between women and men in theatre and in the arts. This was also the reason why I have quoted Simone de Beauvoir, and I have quoted also Teveleit. He has published a very important book, only in German, I think, unfortunately, about women in art, and he has a very radical view about the history of women in art, and I think we really have also to change the fundamentals of the view, but I think there is, even if, of course, she was in this position also, of course, I have understood. She was in this position also because she was with Bertolt Brecht, of course. But she has an own history. She has her own history. It was not so closed in everything to Brecht. Yes, and I think we have to think about the concept also of theater, and yes, perhaps also the Brecht theater, the epic theater, is not bad at all to recognize also the performance of women in another way than to make them to objects. Yes, this is also I think it is also very difficult to find another way. Yeah, the stage is always the stage, and everybody you have to be to get the attention of the public, of the audience, and yes, for women it is always youth and beauty, and yes, if we cannot find another way, I cannot see how to change this imbalance in the structures of
So
of
you
theater.
would say that Bertolt Brecht's theater is a feminist frame of work, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Alexandra?
Thank you for your lecture. I have a question about these other collaborators of Brecht, which is Ruth Blau, for example, or Margaret Steffin, or
Yeah.
Elisabeth Hauptmann. What was their relationship with Helene Weigel? Because they were also the creative collaborators before a play gets to be.
It's very concerned.
Yes, what was their relationship? I mean, Helene Weigel knew about their collaboration, or did she completely ignore it?
No, it was a family. They were with them, and it was even in '33.
Because what I know is that Margaret, I think Steffin went with the family in exile in Denmark.
Yeah, yes, of course. Everybody was together. Elisabeth Hauptmann not, because I think there was a break between her and Brecht before the exile, but she was coming back, and she has worked in the Berliner Ensemble. And Helene Weigel, she was the mother in a certain kind, and she has all these lovers from her husband. And she was giving, you can read it, I was in the archive it is very nice, you have to go there, in Berlin, in the Brecht house, the Brecht archive, and you can read the letters from Helene Weigel, where she, for instance, Ruth Berlau, she was very famous photographer, and she was photographer and lover of Bertolt Brecht. And she was also...
she was living with them in Denmark.
In Denmark, yes, of course. She was from Denmark, yes, and she was after the death of Brecht. We have to look there. And Helene Weigel, she cares for everybody, because Ruth Berlau, she had a really big alcohol problem, and Helene Weigel cares for him and has also respected the testament of Brecht. Brecht has given a lot of money to Elisabeth Hauptmann, and Ruth Berlau, Steffin, she died in exile because she had tuberculosis.
Yes.
And because the testament of Brecht was not legal. It was not really. He has written it, but it was not in the way you have to do it.
Yeah.
But he has written it, and she respected his last will, how to say, she gave a lot of money to these women. But of course, there's also a big discussion about the authorship from Brecht in this. But you have to say
He could have.
there is this book, Brecht and Company. But I think it is it is not the way we have to see this. I think John Fugi is one. He has a paternalistic view on this women, and for him it is how to say text against how to say I have to sex for text. It's a different sex for text. So, but I think it is a paternalistic view of this women. Yes, because he made them two victims. Yes, the poor victims of the manipulator Brecht. This was really very intelligent women, and I think there were no. There were a problematic relationship, of course, but never Elisabeth Hauptmann or Ruth Berlau had pronounced anything against Brecht. So I think it is also very. Of course, I have also quoted the other examples. Everything is difficult. Yes, when you have, of course, you know the horrible, really horrible relationship between Camille Claudel and Auguste Rodin. Alors là, I think it is clear that it was a toxic relationship. This is clear. But here it is very complex, I think, and we have also to pay attention not to have too easy solutions. And I think Fugi, it is he was really. He wanted to show that Brecht was the most horrible. Yes, so it is not really. I think it is not really serious. But he has a lot of course, he had also a lot of arguments which we have to think about. So I think I'm not completely against this question, of course. But when you see the relationship between these persons, it is, for me, not enough to accuse Brecht as he is the male. He's. I think the women in this play they play a big role, and they have also a relationship. There is also an important relationship between them. So, and we have to imagine Helene Weigel. She said to Brecht in 1933, "I don't go with you in exile when you are when Margarete Steffin will come with us." And he said, "No, she will stay at home." And 1 week later, she arrived at Denmark. So, and it was all with also this kind. So it is a very special way to live together. And in exile you have not the choice. Also, there's a certain. And Elisabeth Hauptmann, nobody had played her, read or played her pieces. It was also for her very important to be the collaborator of Bertolt Brecht.
Well, she was the first who translated the Tripani opera.
Yes.
But most of us, we know that it was written by Brecht, not by Brecht in collaboration with Elisabeth Hauptmann.
No, yes. Now you can read it. But there is also now a discussion about it because
he could have credited her more in the process, I believe.
Yes, of course.
I mean, there is a tiny disclaimer after the title that it was written in collaboration with X, Y, Z. But
now it is more complex. Now, now the how to say heritage of Brecht want that Elisabeth Hauptmann is co-author, recognized as a co-author, because this means that because Brecht is now 60
Almost 70.
70 years dead. So his work goes in the public
Access.
yes. And if Elisabeth Hauptmann is co-author because she died later. So behind all these discussions, so you have really to be very attentive because behind all these discussions often there are a lot of financial interest. We cannot ignore it, yeah. But Brecht himself, he was not in this kind of logic. He was, we can say it, I think he was generous, but he was not, of course, in this time, he was the chef, and of course, Elisabeth Hauptmann was the assistant. So, but it was the same as with Benno Besson. And Benno Besson, he has often, because Benno Besson and Elisabeth Hauptmann was, Benno Besson, it was the assistant of Bertolt Brecht. And he later became also a very important director. And he often argued against Fügi, because he is the male pendant to Elisabeth Hauptmann. And he explained other things, but it is very difficult to have a real objective view of this kind of. But I agree completely with you that Elisabeth Hauptmann is the co-author of not only this play, but I think this is not this. We haven't to discuss it. Yeah. We have only to discuss yes, where were the place of Brecht and what was in the and were there a compensation for her also? Yeah. We have to say that she worked in the 70s for the Berliner Ensemble with Helene Weigel. So we can also state that there were not really a break. Then she said, and she was not obliged to do it. She had other possibilities. It was also true.
I would like to ask you, you raised a lot of important issues like aging in theater, and I'm very interested in you shaped the importance of Helene Weigel in how the importance of her in the shaping of the Brechtian theater in terms of acting style. So I would be very interested. I'm not familiar with whether in the 30s how large is her repertoire. How large? What kind of roles is she creating? Whether the typecasting of the 30s, how you can relate, how do you see this career in these terms, which shifts to the Brechtian way of acting style?
I think she was in the 20s. She was a recognized actress in Berlin. She worked at the Deutsches Theater and the Volkstheater, and she in some interviews we can see that she was more. It was more about the way how the theater was directed, because when she gives interviews in the 60s, it was about her role as a theater director. So she was she was very critic about the style of theater directors, that they were not accessible. She told that she had worked at the Deutsches Theater. They were Max Reinhardt and never had the possibility to meet him, for instance. So she told about this kind of style also to be a director of a theater. This is also very interesting. But about her career as actress, I think her repertoire was certainly more wilder in the 20s than afterwards, because she was fixed and Mother Courage, the mother. There were, of course, she had other roles, but normally in the place of Brecht. So a certain, and you can see a lot of plays of Brecht this kind of women, this kind of women title roles. Yes, you have it also in the Kaukasischer Kreidekreis, how to say it in English, the circle, the Caucasian chalk circle. Yeah. And there's also a very tough woman in the center of the play. So this is also very interesting to look at the theater of Brecht, who has created a lot of this kind of roles, and I think for her it was also a chance. But of course, as in the 20s, she was a young woman, a talented actress. So of course she has she played in a lot of different roles. Yeah. But she is, I think, for the theater memory, it is the roles she presented in the plays of Brecht are the most important for her career.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for questions. Mulțumesc. Elita îmi spune că putem să ne uităm un pic la expoziție, dacă mai aveți răbdare, 5 minute. Acesta este site-ul. Dacă intrăm în expoziții, o să vedem și primele două expoziții, Critica de teatru curatoriată de Miruna Runcan, Secretariatele literare curatoriată de Raluca Sas și cea de-a treia expoziție, Unde ne sunt regizoarele. Perioada pe care am încercat să o acopăr a fost 1964, nu întâmplător, ci pentru că atunci s-a reluat școala de regie la București, după o pauză, și cele două regizoare de teatru despre care vorbesc în expoziție au absolvit în această în această generație postbelică, i-am zis eu, între 64 și 69 au studiat ele regia, și prima la care m-am oprit a fost Gina Ionescu, care a rămas în România, dar al cărei destin a fost la fel de tragic, ba poate chiar mai tragic decât al Magdei Bordeanu, pentru că după câteva spectacole, Gina Ionescu a terminat șefă de promoție, șefa acestei promoții, era cu adevărat extraordinară din tot ce am citit despre ea, dar a făcut doar foarte puține spectacole, cred că 4 cu totul, la distanțe foarte mari de timp. A debutat cu Pirandello, Uriașii Munților, și așa l-a făcut, cum să zic, l-a adus în atenția publică pe Radu Boruzescu cu acest spectacol. A avut cronici extraordinare, după care faptul că ea, înainte să facă școala de regie, fusese arestată în 1956 în contextul fusese prinsă împreună cu alții tineri din vremea aceea discutând despre Revoluția din Ungaria și arestată, a făcut 2 ani de închisoare la o vârstă la care era foarte fragilă încă, la 18 ani, și asta a marcat-o foarte mult. Emoțional a fost imposibil să-și revină după aceea. Deci a făcut câteva spectacole în care se vedea această experiență în închisoare foarte bine. ultimul spectacol și cel mai puternic atașat de această experiență a fost Casa Bernardei Alba la Teatrul Notara. Toate aceste spectacole puține au avut cronici extraordinare, toată lumea era de acord că este un regizor nemaipomenit, dar urmele ei s-au pierdut, spre deosebire de vedeți din aceeași generație, Aureliu Manea, care și el a avut probleme foarte puternice, dar a rămas în istoria teatrului românesc, Andrei Șerban, Ivan Helmer și ceva mai mult succes să fie vizibil a avut Anca Ovanez. În același timp, dacă ne întoarcem puțin la... Deci asta ar fi generația postbelică. Drumul exilului am considerat-o reprezentativă pentru asta pe Magda Bordeianu, care la un moment dat era chiar foarte faimoasă pentru că a înființat Teatrul din Pod, așa îi se spunea inițial. Noi astăzi știm că Teatrul Podul este legat doar de numele lui Cătălin Naum, dar adevărul este că Magda Bordeanu împreună cu alți câțiva studenți, dar conceptul și ideea au fost ale ei. Ea este cea care a înființat acest teatru în podul Casei de Cultură a Studenților din București. Aici este un articol scris de Lucian Giurchescu, care a fost profesorul lor și care scrie despre fiecare în parte în profunzime. Magda a fost atât de faimoasă la un moment dat încât a apărut pe coperta revistei Flacăra, care era cea mai populară în epocă, pentru că era un pic mai deschisă și mai departe de discursul ăla foarte strict al propagandei care apărea în toate ziarele. Mișcarea de la Teatru Podu, îmi pare rău că articolele sunt cam lungi, dar sunt și multe poze, să știți. Magda, care e încă în viață și trăiește la Mainz, în Germania, aici e cu Levința, au lucrat împreună și au avut o bună prietenie. Mi-a trimis foarte multe fotografii și mi-a vorbit foarte frumos despre aceasta e fiica ei care a devenit regizoare, a studiat același lucru și în Germania lucrează într-o școală în teatru. Magda a înființat o școală, asta este o imagine din școala pe care i-a înființat-o la Mainz. A înființat o școală de teatru și o școală de creat măști, ambele autorizate de guvernul german, li se dau diplome celor de acolo, li se dădeau, că acum evident a ieșit la pensie. Aici este împreună cu Ione Munteanu, iubitul ei cu care era studentul lui Baba la arte plastice și împreună au făcut imaginea teatrului din Pod, au pictat toți pereții de acces până acolo, era un lucru chiar foarte special. Ione, din păcate, s-a sinucis după mai multe momente în care au fost reținuți, li s-au tăiat pletele, blugii, era o perioadă foarte complicată și Magda și-a revenit destul de greu după lucrul ăsta, evident. Acesta este soțul ei, Vladimir Brânduș, cu care s-a cunoscut la Universitatea de la București și cu care a emigrat împreună. Magda a insistat asupra, și din toate fotografiile astea reiese de fapt, că exista o solidaritate feminină în breasla teatrală, că avea susținere din partea actrițelor, din partea scenografelor, că, cum e și Doina Levința, dar și aceasta Elena Zlotescu, tot scenografă, și mi-am dat seama cât de important e totuși să discutăm și lucrurile astea pe care nu le știm foarte mult despre teatrul românesc. Cum rezistau femeile în teatru și din interviul cu ea, cred că am pus și interviul, l-am publicat ca atare, pentru că este o resursă importantă. Ea povestește despre atmosfera din teatru, despre cum lucrau, despre condițiile de muncă, despre cât de dificil era pentru o regizoare, mai ales tânără, o femeie, să demonstreze că are o viziune, să spună, să insiste că are un fel de a face teatru, pentru că ea de asta a devenit atât de remarcată încă de la începutul carierei și încă de când era studentă, aici era studentă, pentru că avea un stil de teatru foarte special, pe care după aceea în teatru i-a fost mult mai greu să-l pună în scenă, fiindcă nu avea încredere din partea actorilor, care ei, știm, actorii știu ei vor un rol, vor să știe ce spun pe scenă, ori ea avea și această idee de a improviza și de a colabora și de a lucra într-un alt fel, pe care îl vedem astăzi mai mult în teatru independent de la noi. Deci cumva istoria se repetă. E foarte interesant cum se repetă. Era un moment atunci exact ca momentul de dinainte de apariția Dramacum. Căutau texte noi, nu găseau, textele publicate li se păreau și erau foarte nișate, să zicem așa, pe propagandă și încercau să descopere noi dramaturgi. Deci ăsta e studiul de caz Magda Bordeanu și al treilea, o să mă întrebați de ce, dar este o regizoare de film, Cristiana Nicolae, ale cărei filme le-am descoperit cu mare surpriză și am avut un șoc, pentru că mi-am dat seama că din toate filmele pe care le văzusem, filme românești, evident, despre realitatea socialistă, despre timpurile acelea, sau chiar și filmele istorice, toate aveau un punct de vedere puternic masculin, chiar și cele făcute de câteva femei, ca Malvina Urșianu sau Elisabeta Bostan. Ei bine, această femeie despre care eu, după 20 de ani de scris despre cultura română, n-am știut nimic, am descoperit-o acum câțiva ani, Cristiana Nicolae, a făcut doar 4 sau 5 filme în România, după care a plecat în 90 la Montreal și a rămas acolo. Filmele pe care ea le-a făcut au un punct de vedere feminin atât de puternic și atât de articulat, în ciuda epocii și în ciuda propagandei și a ceea ce trebuia să spui și să arăți în film, și după aceea am descoperit că toate interviurile și declarațiile date de ea aveau asumat și articulat în vorbe același punct de vedere, încât am fost complet uimită și fericită în același timp că exista o asemenea articulată viziune. Deci de asta am decis să scriu și despre o regizoare de film care, culmea, a scris o piesă de teatru pe care am postat-o, pentru că ea a insistat foarte mult să o citesc. Este o revizitare din punct de vedere feminist a miturilor grecești. E foarte ambițioasă și nu totul este reușit, dar este un lucru care pe mine m-a încântat, că cineva a vrut să facă așa ceva și nu a făcut decât să adauge cumva la toată viziunea ei și să-mi demonstreze cât de articulat feministă era această femeie complet înaintea epocii în care noi vorbim despre asta. Deci acesta este unde ne sunt regizoarele, acolo ne sunt, aici, am recuperat câteva și sunt convinsă că sunt mai multe și sper din tot sufletul să putem continua. Asta este o imagine din filmul ei, Hanul dintre dealuri, care este o refacere a Hanului lui Mânjoală din perspectivă feministă. Bineînțeles că această femeie, Hangița, nu mai este o vrăjitoare, nu mai este cineva care lucrează cu diavolul ca să seducă bărbatul, ci dimpotrivă este o femeie pe care o putem vedea astăzi. Da? O femeie care este în comuniune cu natura, care înțelege plantele, care știe să le aleagă, știe ce funcție are fiecare și care încearcă să restabilească legile naturale și e extraordinară această actriță, Dana Dogaru, e nemaipomenită. Asta este Cristiana acum la Toronto. Mulțumesc, sper să intrați să vedeți expoziția, să citiți și asta e.